The horror of the Great War just after the turn of the century left the whole world scarred, shocked, and disillusioned. But the contrast to the darkness of the 1900s and 1910s was the economic prosperity and the live-for-the-moment post-war mentality of the lost generation in the 1920s. The Roaring Twenties. The Republican era. The decade of normalcy. The prosperity decade. And the era of wonderful nonsense. The bounce back from the First World War left a 1920s American with a lot of money, a lot of time, and a lot to live for. The result was a focus on leisure and recreation never seen before. In 1928, more than 1/4 of America's GDP was spent on leisure and recreation. An age of prosperity, the 20s allowed more Americans to live and to play than ever before.
In America, the 1920s saw a shift in the popular view of sports. Participating in and watching sports was part of the good life, and became tied to the American dream. Until the 20s, sports remained mostly the domain of the wealthy, but as incomes rose, sports began to become available to any American that wanted to participate. And beyond the aspect of universal participation, sports held families together by entertaining them. For the first time in history, athletic stadiums filled to the brim with tens of thousands of fans, there to see sports stars that the media painted as gods. For the first time ever, mothers, fathers, and children could crowd around their household radio and tune in to the game. The fundamental tie between sports and the American dream that came with the 1920s meant that power dynamics and themes of the time were absolutely reflected in sports. The problems of racism, classism, and sexism were all reflected in sports. In a decade when there was no struggles for freedom overseas and no great causes to die for, Americans found a cause in a struggle in the ballpark rather than the battlefield.